Rain pelted against the windows of Everbrook High School as Finn Sullivan hunched over his desk, trying his best to disappear into the background of Ms. Winter's science class. The autumn storm outside matched his mood, gray, distant, and somehow comforting in its gloom. At 15, Finn had mastered the art of being invisible, of blending into the institutional beige walls, and avoiding the attention of his classmates. The classroom door creaked open, interrupting Ms. Winter's lecture about cellular mutation. Principal Hammond stepped in, and behind him stood a girl Finn had never seen before. She moved with an otherworldly grace, her silver-white hair falling in waves past her shoulders, skin so pale it seemed to have a slight bluish tint under the fluorescent lights. "Class, please welcome our new student, Naira Zalthur," Ms. Winters announced, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty as she pronounced the unusual name. "She's joining us from, where was it again, dear?" "Northern Europe," Naira replied, her voice melodic, but with an accent Finn couldn't quite place. Her eyes, an unusual shade of violet, scanned the room before settling on him. For a moment, just a brief instant, Finn felt as though she could see right through him. The only empty seat was next to Finn, and as Naira glided toward it, he noticed something odd. The lights above flickered slightly, and his tablet screen went black for a second before returning to normal. He dismissed it as a power surge from the storm, but a nagging feeling in the back of his mind told him otherwise. As the class continued, Finn found himself stealing glances at Naira. She sat perfectly still, almost too still, as if she were posing for a photograph. Her notes weren't written in any alphabet Finn recognized, and sometimes, when Ms. Winters wasn't looking, the symbols seemed to shift and move on their own. During the break between classes, Finn hurried to his locker, his mind still puzzling over the strange new student. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice the football team's star linebacker, Brock Harrison, until he slammed into him. "Watch it, freak," Brock growled, shoving Finn against the lockers. But before Brock could continue his usual torment, something extraordinary happened. The temperature in the hallway dropped suddenly, and all the lights began to flicker violently. Brock stepped back, confused, and Finn felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. "I suggest you leave him alone." Naira's voice cut through the chaos like a blade of ice. She stood behind Brock, her violet eyes now seeming to glow with an inner light. Brock turned, a sneer ready on his face, but it died as soon as he met her gaze. Without another word, he backed away and hurried down the hall. "Are you all right?" Naira asked Finn, her voice softening. The lights had returned to normal, and the hallway's temperature was rising again. "I'm fine," Finn mumbled, gathering his scattered books. "Thanks, but how did you do that?" Naira's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Do what?" "I simply asked him to leave you alone." Before Finn could press further, the bell rang, and students began flooding the hallway. By the time he looked up again, Naira had vanished into the crowd, leaving him with more questions than answers. Throughout the day, strange things continued to happen. During lunch, Finn's chocolate milk exploded without anyone touching it. In English class, his paper airplane somehow flew in perfect circles around the room before landing exactly where he'd launched it. And every time something unusual occurred, he noticed Naira watching him with those penetrating violet eyes. After school, as Finn walked home through the rain, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The streets were empty, but shadows seemed to move independently of their sources, and the streetlights flickered as he passed beneath them. 3 blocks from home, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning quickly, he saw Naira standing there, completely dry despite the downpour. "We need to talk, Finn Sullivan," she said, her voice carrying over the sound of the rain. "You're in danger, and you don't even know it yet." Finn's heart began to race. "What are you talking about? Who are you really?" "Not here," Naira replied, glancing around nervously. "They're watching. They've always been watching, but now they're getting closer. The changes are beginning, and soon they'll come for you. Changes? Who's coming? You're not making any sense. Finn protested, but deep down, he felt the truth of her words. The strange incidents, the tingling sensations, the way technology seemed to malfunction around him. It all meant something. Naira stepped closer, her violet eyes intense. Your whole life has been carefully constructed, Finn. A beautiful lie to keep you safe until the right moment. But that moment is coming sooner than we expected, and I can't protect you if you don't trust me. Thunder cracked overhead, and in that brief flash of lightning, Finn saw something impossible. For just a split second, Naira's form seemed to shift, revealing something both beautiful and terrifying, a being of pure energy and light, with wings that stretched across the darkened sky. When his vision cleared, she was normal again. But Finn knew he could never unsee what he had witnessed. His ordinary world had cracked open, revealing something extraordinary beneath the surface, and somehow he knew that his life would never be the same again. "What am I?" he whispered, his voice trembling. Naira's expression softened. "You're something they fear, Finn. Something they've been hunting for a very long time. And tomorrow, I'll show you why." Finn barely slept that night. His dreams were filled with violet eyes and wings of light, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw that impossible moment when Naira's human form had slipped away. The morning came too quickly, and with it, a sense of both dread and anticipation that made his stomach churn. He arrived at school early, drawn by some inexplicable force. The hallways were nearly empty, but he found Naira waiting by his locker, as if she'd known exactly where he'd be. She wore the same pristine white uniform as yesterday, but something about her seemed different in the pale morning light, more ethereal, less solid. "Follow me," she said without preamble. "There's something you need to see." They walked in silence through the school's empty corridors, descending stairs Finn had never noticed before, until they reached a door marked Maintenance, Restricted Access. Naira placed her hand on the lock, and it clicked open without a key. "What you're about to learn will change everything," she said, her voice echoing in the darkness beyond the door. "Are you ready?" Finn swallowed hard, but nodded. They stepped into what should have been a maintenance room, but instead opened into a vast chamber filled with softly humming machinery. Holographic displays flickered in the air, showing star charts and diagrams Finn couldn't begin to understand. "This is a monitoring station," Naira explained, moving through the space with familiar ease. "One of many hidden across your planet. We've been watching, waiting, protecting those like you. Those like me." Finn's voice cracked. "What exactly am I?" Naira turned to face him, her violet eyes glowing in the dim light. "You're a catalyst, Finn. A being of extraordinary potential, born with the ability to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. But you're not just any catalyst, you're the last one." The words hit Finn like a physical force. He stumbled backward, catching himself against a console. "That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm just me." "The incidents yesterday weren't accidents," Naira continued. "The flickering lights, the exploding milk carton, the paper airplane. Those were manifestations of your power beginning to awaken. The hunters felt it too, and now they're coming." As if on cue, an alarm began to blare through the chamber. Red lights pulsed along the walls, and the holographic displays flickered with new information. Naira's expression hardened as she read the alien symbols. "They're here earlier than expected," she muttered, then grabbed Finn's hand. "We need to move. Now." They sprinted back toward the stairs, but before they could reach them, the door above burst open. 3 figures descended, moving with an unnatural fluidity that made Finn's skin crawl. They wore sleek black armor that seemed to absorb light, and their faces were hidden behind featureless masks. "Step aside, Guardian," one of them spoke, its voice a mechanical hiss. "The boy belongs to the collective now." Naira pushed Finn behind her, and this time there was no mistaking the transformation. Her human disguise melted away like morning mist, revealing her true form, a being of crystalline light, with wings that filled the chamber with rainbow refractions. "He belongs to no one," she declared, her voice resonating with power. "Finn, whatever happens, stay behind me." The hunters moved as one, drawing weapons that hummed with dark energy. Finn watched in awe as Nera met their attack, her wings becoming shields of pure light. The air crackled with energy as Hunter and Guardian clashed in a battle that defied physics. But it was what happened next that truly changed everything. As one of the hunters broke through Naira's defense, aiming its weapon at Finn, time seemed to slow down. Finn felt something surge within him, a power he couldn't name but somehow knew how to use. He raised his hands instinctively, and reality itself bent around them. The hunters' weapons crumbled. Their armor began to crack, light seeping through the fissures. But before Finn could press his advantage, a new figure emerged from the shadows, tall, elegant, and radiating an authority that made even Naira step back. "Director Pierce," Naira whispered, her voice tight with tension. The woman, Director Pierce, surveyed the scene with cold, calculating eyes. "Remarkable," she said, studying Finn. "The prophecies didn't do you justice, young catalyst." "Stay back," Finn warned, raising his hands. The power thrummed through him, ready to be unleashed. Director Pierce smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We're not your enemies, Finn. We're trying to protect you, and protect others from what you might become. The Guardians haven't told you everything." Naira stepped forward, her human disguise flickering. "Don't listen to her, Finn. The organization twists the truth to serve their own ends." "Truth?" Director Pierce laughed softly. "Tell him, Guardian. Tell him what happened to the other catalysts. Tell him why he's really the last one." Finn looked at Naira, seeing the conflict in her violet eyes. What is she talking about? But before Naira could answer, the chamber erupted into chaos. More hunters appeared, weapons firing. Naira's true form blazed forth, her wings creating a shield of light around them. Finn felt the power building inside him, threatening to explode. "The pillar," Naira shouted over the chaos. "It's our only chance." Finn ran for the central column, dodging energy blasts. Director Pierce barked orders, and the hunters moved to surround them. But they weren't quite fast enough. The moment Finn's hand touched the pillar, everything changed. The symbols began to glow with increasing intensity, and he felt his power connecting with something ancient and vast. Energy coursed through the chamber, making the air itself crackle. "No." Director Pierce's voice seemed to come from very far away. Naira grabbed Finn's other hand, her true form fully manifested now. "Hold on," she commanded. "This will feel strange." The world dissolved into pure light. Finn felt himself being pulled apart and reassembled, flowing through space like water through a sieve. The last thing he saw before everything went white was Director Pierce's face, twisted with a mixture of fury and fear. When reality solidified again, they were somewhere else entirely. Finn fell to his knees, gasping, his whole body tingling with residual energy. They were in a different chamber, this one filled with advanced technology, and staffed by beings that looked similar to Naira's true form. "Welcome to Guardian Command," Naira said softly, helping him to his feet. "Now we can begin your real training, and I can tell you the truth about everything." Finn looked around at the impossible scene before him, then back at Naira, including what Director Pierce was talking about the other catalysts. Naira's expression grew solemn. "Yes, but you might not like what you hear." "I need to know," Finn insisted. "All of it." Around them, the Guardian Command hummed with power and possibility, while somewhere above, Finn knew the hunters were already regrouping, planning their next move. The game had changed, and he had a feeling the real challenges were only just beginning. Guardian Command was unlike anything Finn had ever imagined. The vast chamber stretched upward into darkness, its walls lined with crystalline structures that pulsed with living light. Beams of pure energy moved through the space, their forms shifting and flowing like aurora borealis given consciousness. But Finn barely noticed any of it. His attention was fixed on Nera as she led him to a quiet alcove away from the others. "The other catalysts," she began, her voice heavy with memory. "They were like you, children of both worlds, born with the power to reshape reality itself. But their stories, they didn't end well." Finn sat on a bench that seemed to form itself from the crystal wall. "What happened to them?" "They burned out," Naira said softly. "Their power consumed them, or at least that's what we thought at first. But the truth was far worse." She paused, her human disguise flickering slightly. "The organization, Director Pierce's people, they were hunting catalysts long before I became your guardian. They claimed they wanted to protect them, to help them control their abilities. But really, they were harvesting them." Harvesting. Finn felt sick. A catalyst's power can be extracted, stored, used to fuel technologies beyond anything humanity has dreamed of. The organization built their empire on the energy they stole from children like you. We tried to stop them, but we were too late. By the time we understood what was happening, you were the only one left. The hunter's weapon crumbled to dust. The very air seemed to ripple. And for a moment, Finn saw the underlying structure of the universe, a complex web of energy and possibility that he could somehow touch, could somehow change. "Impossible," one of the hunters whispered. "The power shouldn't be manifesting this quickly." Naira took advantage of their surprise, her light intensifying until the hunters were forced to retreat, disappearing back up the stairs. As soon as they were gone, she returned to her human form, but her eyes remained bright with ethereal energy. "Now you understand," she said softly. "Why they fear you, why they want to control you. Your power, Finn, it's unlike anything we've seen before." Finn stared at his hands, still feeling the echo of that incredible power. "What happens now?" "Now we run," Naira replied grimly. "The hunters will return with reinforcements, and we're not ready to face their full strength. There's a network of safe houses where I can train you, teach you to control your abilities." "My parents," Finn started, but Naira cut him off. "They knew this day would come. They're part of the Guardian Network, chosen to protect you until your powers emerge. They'll understand." The reality of his situation began to sink in. His whole life had been orchestrated, a careful charade to keep him safe until this moment. But as he looked at Naira, saw the fierce determination in her otherworldly eyes, he realized that perhaps this truth was better than the lie he'd been living. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Minutes, maybe less. The hunters will have called for backup the moment they saw your power manifest. We need to be gone before they return." Finn took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Then let's go." As they hurried through the secret passages beneath the school, Finn could feel his world transforming around him. He was no longer just the shy boy who tried to disappear. He was something more, something powerful. And with Naira beside him, he was ready to discover exactly what that meant. The underground tunnels beneath Everbrook High stretched far beyond what Finn had imagined possible. He and Naira raced through the darkness, their footsteps echoing off ancient walls that seemed to pulse with a faint, bluish luminescence. Every few seconds, Finn could feel tremors above them. The hunters weren't giving up easily. "These tunnels," Finn panted as they ran. "They've always been here." "They're part of a global network," Naira explained, her voice steady despite their pace. "Built centuries ago by the first Guardians who came to Earth. Your school was built on top of one of our major hubs. That's why your parents chose it for you." A massive explosion rocked the tunnel, sending dust and debris raining down on them. Finn stumbled, but Naira caught his arm, keeping him upright. The hunters were getting closer. "They're trying to collapse the tunnels," Naira said grimly. "Force us to surface where they can trap us." As if to confirm her words, another explosion shook the passage, this one closer. Chunks of concrete fell from the ceiling, and Finn felt that strange power surge through him again. Without thinking, he raised his hands, and the falling debris froze in midair before dissolving into harmless dust. Naira's eyes widened. Your control is improving faster than I expected. But we can't fight them here. We need to reach the sanctuary. They rounded a corner and found themselves in a vast circular chamber. Multiple tunnels branched off in different directions, their entrances marked with symbols that glowed with the same ethereal light as Naira's true form. In the center of the chamber stood a pillar covered in intricate markings. The nexus point, Naira breathed. If we can activate it. Her words were cut short by a high-pitched whine that made Finn's teeth ache. The air behind them rippled, and 3 more hunters materialized, their black armor seeming to drink in the chamber's light. The catalyst comes with us, the lead hunter announced, its voice distorted and inhuman. The Guardian's interference ends now. Naira pushed Finn toward the central pillar. Touch it. Your power will activate the transportation matrix. Finn lunged for the pillar, but one of the hunters fired a weapon that wrapped bands of dark energy around him, pulling him back. The power inside him surged in response, and suddenly the bands shattered. He felt something new awakening, a deeper understanding of the energy flowing through him. Time seemed to slow as Finn turned to face the hunters. He could see the structure of reality around them, the complex web of forces that held everything together. With a thought, he reached out and plucked at those forces, unraveling them. The crystal walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with Finn's racing heart. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I was afraid, Naira admitted. Afraid that knowing the truth would make you afraid of your own power. Afraid that. She was interrupted by a soft chime that echoed through the chamber. One of the energy beings floated toward them, its form coalescing into a more humanoid shape. Guardian Naira. It spoke in a voice like wind through crystal. The council requests your presence, alone. Naira frowned. I can't leave Finn. The hunters. He will be safe here, the being assured her. The council's chambers are shielded. No one can track him within these walls. After a moment's hesitation, Naira stood. I'll be back soon, she promised Finn. Don't wander off. But as soon as she disappeared into the depths of Guardian Command, another figure emerged from the shadows, a human woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. Hello, Finn, she said quietly. My name is Oracle, and there are things about your guardian that you need to know. Finn tensed, ready to call upon his power if needed. What things? She hasn't told you everything, Oracle said, sitting where Naira had been moments before. About why you're really the last catalyst. About her role in what happened to the others. What are you talking about? Oracle waved her hand, and the air between them shimmered, forming images that moved like a film reel. Finn saw younger versions of Naira, saw her moving through Earth's cities, finding other children with power burning in their eyes. Before you, there were 12 others, Oracle explained. Naira was assigned to protect them too. Every single one was lost to the organization. Don't you find that strange? That the one guardian who kept losing her charges was assigned to protect the last catalyst. Finn watched the images, his mind racing. You're saying she worked for them. For the organization. Not exactly, Oracle said, but she was compromised. The organization had something she wanted, something she was willing to sacrifice others to obtain. And now history is repeating itself. The crystal wall suddenly flashed red, and alarms began blaring throughout Guardian Command. Oracle stood, her expression grim. They're here, she said. The hunters found us, just as Naira knew they would. No, Finn shook his head. She wouldn't. But even as he spoke, he saw Naira returning, her expression too controlled, too calm for the chaos erupting around them. Behind her came Director Pierce and a squad of hunters, moving through Guardian Command as if they owned it. I'm sorry, Finn, Naira said, and for the first time, He heard real regret in her voice. "But this is bigger than just you and me. The organization has my sister. They've had her for centuries, keeping her between life and death. They promised to release her if I brought you to them." Finn felt his world cracking apart for the second time in as many days. The power inside him surged, responding to his pain and betrayal. Crystal walls began to splinter, energy fields fluctuated, and the very air seemed to bend around him. "You don't understand what's at stake," Director Pierce said, stepping forward. "Your power, properly harnessed, could revolutionize everything. End wars, cure diseases, reshape the very fabric of reality. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of a child." Oracle interrupted, her voice sharp. "That's always been your justification, hasn't it? As you destroyed one young life after another." Finn looked between them. Naira with her conflicted loyalty, Director Pierce with her cold rationality, Oracle with her hidden agenda, and felt something shift inside him. The power wasn't just energy anymore, it was understanding. He could see the threads of consequence stretching out from this moment, could see how each choice would ripple through time. "No more," he said quietly, and reality trembled at his words. "No more sacrifices, no more justifications, no more children paying the price for adult ambitions." The power exploded outward from him in a wave of pure possibility. Hunter's weapons dissolved. Director Pierce's technology failed. And Naira fell to her knees as something inside her broke free. A figure of light emerged from her collapsed form, another guardian, younger, radiating the same ethereal energy, but unmarred by centuries of compromise. "Sister," Naira whispered, reaching out with trembling hands. Finn understood then. His power hadn't just torn apart the organization's control, it had unraveled the very spell that had kept Naira's sister trapped. He had freed her, but not in the way the organization had promised. As chaos erupted around them, as guardians and hunters clashed in the crystalline halls, Finn made his choice. He reached out and took Oracle's offered hand. "There's another way," she said, "a path that doesn't require sacrifice. Will you trust me to show you?" Behind them, Naira called his name, her voice breaking with regret and hope and fear. But Finn didn't look back. He had seen enough of where that path led. "Show me," he said to Oracle, and together they stepped into the unknown, leaving the shattered remains of trust and betrayal behind them. The old observatory stood abandoned on the outskirts of the city, its massive dome reflecting the last rays of sunset. Inside, Finn stood with Oracle among dusty telescopes and outdated equipment, while she explained what his power truly meant. The organization and the Guardians, they both got it wrong, Oracle said, her voice echoing in the circular chamber. They saw catalysts as sources of power, as weapons or tools. But you're something else entirely. You're not meant to be harvested or controlled. You're meant to bring balance. Finn ran his hand along an old star chart, feeling the texture of the paper beneath his fingers. In the week since their escape from Guardian Command, his understanding of his abilities had grown exponentially. Under Oracle's guidance, he had learned to see beyond mere energy manipulation, to understand the deeper patterns that held reality together. "They're coming," he said quietly, feeling the disturbance in the world's fabric. "Both of them, the organization and the Guardians." Oracle nodded, unsurprised. This was inevitable. The observatory sits on a nexus point, like your school did. The power here, it calls to them. And to you. The air crackled with tension as multiple transportation signatures flared to life. Director Pierce appeared with her hunters, their armor upgraded with new defenses. Moments later, Naira materialized with a contingent of Guardians, including her recently freed sister, who still radiated raw power. "Finn," Naira called out, her voice carrying a weight of regret. "Your technology," Finn explained to Director Pierce, "it doesn't need harvested catalyst energy. It just needs to work in harmony with the natural flow of power. And your protection," he turned to Naira, "doesn't need to isolate and control. It needs to nurture and guide." Oracle stepped forward, her eyes shining. This is what the prophecies truly meant. Not the last catalyst, but the first of a new way. A bridge between all the different forces at play. The hunters lowered their weapons. The guardians dimmed their defensive auras. For the first time, both sides could see the damage their conflict had caused, and the possibility of something better. Naira approached Finn, her true form shimmering with emotion. "I was so wrong," she whispered, "about everything. Can you ever forgive me?" Finn looked at her, seeing not just her regret, but her potential. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past," he said. "It's about choosing a better future. That's what my power is really for, not to fight or control, but to show us all a different path." As the stars wheeled overhead and the observatory hummed with renewed purpose, Finn felt the last pieces fall into place. He wasn't a weapon to be wielded or a resource to be protected. He was a catalyst in the truest sense, a force for change, for healing, for bringing together what had been broken apart. "So," he said, looking at the assembled beings before him, "who's ready to learn a new way?" One by one, they stepped forward, hunters and guardians, Oracle and Naira, even Director Pierce. The old observatory, once a place for looking outward at distant stars, became something new. A school for understanding the connections that ran through all things and the power of choosing to heal rather than harm. And Finn, the shy boy who had once tried so hard to disappear, finally understood why he had always felt different. He wasn't meant to fit into their world. He was meant to help build a better one. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Finn smiled. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. And this time, they would write the story together.